Continuing from the previous part, Gioka's victory helped increase the reputation of the Five Peaks Mountain stronghold, but it also brought along potential threats. At this time, some who had previously fled the stronghold now wished to return. They desperately begged for forgiveness, leaving the leader speechless. Surprisingly, the leader accepted them back, expressing gratitude for their trust. He did so because dozens of other strongholds were emerging, expanding their power. Despite this, people still viewed them as a ragtag group of the banditry. This had angered the leader. To prevent Gioka from shouldering too much responsibility like last time, they were determined to be recognized as part of the Verdant Forest faction. In the upcoming Verdant Forest Assembly, they had to prove that the Five Peaks Mountain stronghold was not just a band of misfits. Since the leaders would be away, someone needed to guard the stronghold. This was why the leader accepted those who had previously abandoned them. Meanwhile, Gioka was dealing with Elder Chunji, who he tried to send away. But the old man was persistent, sticking to him like glue. He started boasting, saying that he was considered a newly emerged talent, the best in Wudang, with deep internal strength and having mastered the Taiji Wisdom Sword for 30 years. However, despite his efforts, he still couldn't circulate the three extremes. Essentially, he wanted to learn from Gioka. Gioka refused loudly, saying he couldn't teach the exorcism techniques that his second brother had passed down to him. Elder Chunji was shocked, not because he wanted to learn such temple arts, but because he only wanted to observe Gioka's training. Then, without warning, he launched an attack, which, though it didn't hit Gioka, destroyed the bamboo forest behind them. This piqued Gioka's interest. They decided on a trade. If Gioka offered him some advice, he would point out Gioka's weaknesses. The elder also realized that Gioka was incredibly strong but unaware of his strength. If Gioka understood this, his martial arts would deepen even further. Eventually, Gioka agreed. Over the next few days, the two trained together, and the elder became friendly with the children of the stronghold. However, Gioka didn't care much for children, as they reminded him of his cunning half-siblings who used him as a joke. Elder Chunji also noticed that this stronghold didn't seem much like the banditry. Everyone here was kind-hearted. The elder even helped ninth sister carry firewood, an unusual task for a distinguished elder. This place was different, unlike other strongholds where people were usually thieves or robbers. But here, they were just people who had fled hardship. Ninth sister had almost been sold to a brothel before coming to the mountain, and she told the elder how the brothers of Five Peaks Mountain Stronghold had saved Gioka's life, and how Gioka now saw this place as his home and protected it. At the same time, the lunar fairy, who had been defeated by Gioka's father years ago, had returned. The suffering she endured that day 20 years ago was unforgettable, and she vowed to make all the great martial factions kneel before her. Meanwhile, the two old wretches of the three demonic heads of Hunan were devastated after learning that Five Peaks Mountain Stronghold had defeated the Mansu Merchant Guild. They had hoped to replace the 10 heroes and join the Verdant Forest faction, but now all their plans were dashed. They shamelessly returned to Five Peaks Mountain Stronghold, only to be scorned by everyone there. When they saw Gioka's dragon claw sword, they thought it was just some farming tool dug up by the others. However, Elder Shim recognized that Gioka could only have performed this sword technique. The first and second brothers knew about the five men's return. They were the ones who had incited others to abandon the stronghold in the past. But now, thanks to Gioka's teachings, the 10 heroes had grown strong enough to defeat the elder. Lee Keelsan challenged him, declaring that he would show the elder that he was no longer the same Lee Keelsan as before. The elder thought he could easily overpower him, but was instead sent flying by a single strike. The old men were shocked. Lee Keelsan had never been this strong before. But the elder wasn't all talk. After all, he was one of the three demonic heads of Hunan. His counterattack managed to subdue Gioka. Just as the elder was about to kill eighth brother, Elder Chunji appeared to save him. The elder was terrified, unable to believe his attack had been blocked by just a finger. After realizing it was Elder Chunji, the elder broke into a cold sweat in fear. The rumors of Chunji's defeat were true. Gioka then stepped forward and, without saying a word, launched into a beating. The elder was still nursing a grudge from the last beating, but after wandering around for a while, he sensed an overwhelming power ahead. Rushing over, he discovered Chunji training with Gioka, and the massive shockwaves from their fight shook the entire mountain. Over the days that Chunji was there, he grew significantly stronger. A single sword strike had such destructive power that it seemed as if Gioka might have been defeated, but he emerged unscathed. That was just the warm-up. He then unleashed the second form of the Nine Heavens sword art, Dragon Fire Ascends. The sky split with a thunderous roar, and had the attack hit its mark, Elder Chunji would have been left with nothing but his underwear. Gioka's power was growing rapidly. Chun-ji finally decided to leave, reasoning that if he were injured in a duel with Gioka, he'd have to stay another few months to recover. Plus, he needed to return and secure his elder's position within his sect. He would always remember the time spent here fondly, forever grateful for the experience. Over 3 months, they had learned much from each other. Watching young Gioka grow had been more meaningful than anything else. Chun-ji would await the day when Gioka stood among the elite martial artists of Central Plains. A month later, a fat man appeared at the Five Peaks camp. He was attacked by a mother bear because he had killed her cubs. This man was none other than the Wind Sovereign, a cunning strategist who cruelly killed the mother bear with a single blow. Let me briefly introduce the leader of Verdant Forest, the Supreme Commander-Destroyer Demonic Lord, Sukmuhi. He is one of the strongest people, never having been defeated. In the past, he stayed at the Shaolin Temple. Oddly, he didn't want to shave his head and beard and possessed extraordinary physical strength. He wished to become a Buddha, but occasionally, he couldn't resist the temptation of a delicious chicken leg. One day, while cleaning a Buddha statue, he accidentally broke it, revealing an ancient martial arts manual, the Dark Heaven Azura Manual. Afterward, the Destroyer Demonic Lord left the Shaolin Temple and wandered the world. It wasn't long before he rose to the position of the leader of Verdant Forest and caused a stir in the martial world by recruiting 12 of the most outstanding disciples. Among the thieves of the world, their power threatened even the elders of the 7 sects and 2 schools, creating the 12 demon generals of banditry, also known as the Reapers, of which the fat man was one. He arrived at Five Peaks camp and arrogantly commented on the camp's modesty. At that time, Gioka was in seclusion, actually sleeping, hidden by the elder brother. They feared that if Gioka met this old man, he would surely adjust his dental arrangement. The bandits, who only cared about drinking and women, could easily be blackmailed by the 5 great families, the Merchant Guild, and the 7 sects and 2 schools. Remember this, do not disgrace Verdant Forest, he said. Then he pointed directly at the 9th and 10th sisters, intending to take advantage of them, but fortunately, the brothers managed to distract him in time. Only then did he remember his mission. He was there to confirm whether they were worthy of banditry's reputation. If not, they would all be destroyed. However, in this region of Hunan, the prestige of the Five Peaks camp was commendable, contributing significantly. It would increase the reputation of Verdant Forest, but it would be a pity to kill them all. Therefore, banditry officially recognized the Five Peaks camp. This time, he was here to invite them to the banditry conference in Jiangnan, a matter that the camp leader had been eagerly awaiting. Everyone immediately organized a feast to entertain him. However, at the brothel, the old man still lusted after Gioka's girls, and then he angrily shouted, "Bring the 2 girls from the camp here, or Five Peaks camp will be razed to the ground today." Despite their efforts to stop him, the fat man aggressively forced the 9th and 10th sisters to drink with him. The camp leader intervened, but the old man grew even more agitated and prepared to attack him. "Everything in this camp belongs to the camp leader, yet you refuse to offer them." The elder brother and second brother had to cry and explain that it was all for his safety. "Please, speak softly, or there will be serious trouble." The old man, growing angrier, was about to attack them when Gioka, awakened by the noise, scolded the old drunkard for not going home to sleep and for daring to cause trouble here. The old man, seeing him as just a boy from the camp who had just woken up and still dreaming, did not take action. Given his status in Verdant Forest, he couldn't bully a child. He then demanded that the 2 girls serve him drinks, but Gioka called out, "Come here, old fat man." The old man immediately released a terrifying aura and attacked him. "Until you beg for mercy, I will make sure you die slowly." However, the old man's lethal aura was easily shattered by Gioka. Now, he was in shock. The move he had just used could defeat mid-level members of the 7 sects and 2 schools. Who on earth was this guy? The old man carefully reconsidered. Both the camp leader and the deputy were ordinary. How could they have pacified Hunan? The prestige of Five Peaks camp was clearly due to this young man. Interesting. It had been a long time since he had used all his strength. "You have skill," he said, but Gioka suddenly burst into laughter, mocking his name as something dirty, like a dog in heat, thus nicknaming him the Wind Sovereign. Enraged, the fat man charged at him with his secret technique, Dark Wind Whitebone Claw. The attack was like a large snake striking. Gioka easily blocked it with his divine 2-finger technique. The old man, breaking the rules, had to use the forbidden technique of Dark Sky Water Silk Suppression. This was a martial art taught by his master, Destroyer Demonic Lord, which had never failed, even defeating elders of various sects in an instant. Yet now, he had to use it against a young man, and his mouth dropped open when his technique was easily countered by Gioka, who immediately closed in, preparing to deliver a dragon-like punch. The old man even saw the Grim Reaper waiting for him in the underworld. Fortunately, the camp leader shouted, begging for his life. If he died here, Five Peaks Camp's chances of joining Verdant Forest would vanish. Although the punch hadn't landed, the old man's limbs trembled, unable to stand. This young man was indeed a monster. If the camp leader hadn't saved his life, the old man would have surely died. Although he hadn't unleashed his full strength, his fighting spirit had already been crushed because he felt as though he were being overwhelmed, just like when standing before his master, destroyer demonic lord. Then he begged, "I was just drunk and acted foolishly, elder brother." Gioka believed him. "Next time, drink properly," he said, then ordered the old man to greet the brothers before leaving so as not to disturb his sleep. In this incident, the fat man would have to report to the chief camp leader, or else the upcoming banditry conference would be ruined. Very quickly, everyone set off for Gyeongnanto to attend the Verdant Forest conference. They had to stop by several villages on their way to Wannan, where the Nangong family was headquartered. It would be unwise to provoke the 7 sects and 2 schools before the Verdant Forest conference, and under no circumstances should they make an enemy of Nangong Bek, one of the top masters in the world. Everyone had to disguise themselves as merchants to avoid trouble. The 2 girls in the 10 masters group dressed up beautifully. It was a rare occasion for them to get dolled up to go out. And when our main character dressed up, he truly looked like a young, wealthy aristocrat, causing the women to swoon. The chief instructed those staying behind to guard the mountain stronghold. On the road, if they encountered anyone, they had to claim to be from the Flying Dragon sect of Hunan. That night, the group encountered Jang Henyang, the chief operator of the Sewol Trading Company. He wanted to join them but was refused. Just by looking at the old man, it was clear that his trading company had recently gone through something troubling, and they didn't want to be caught in the crossfire. Moreover, the name Flying Dragon sect of Hunan was unfamiliar to him, and there was an air of elegance and nobility emanating from the group, especially Gioka. The swordsman of the trading company would stand no chance against the pursuing Lu Mingmon. Without the presence of the Five Peaks Mountain Group, they would surely perish. Desperate, the old man offered all his wealth in exchange for their protection, but the chief refused. There was no free lunch, and no bait came without a hook. If the trading company was facing such powerful enemies, the gold they offered must not have come easily. Participating in this would be dangerous, so they reluctantly declined. Just then, a black-clad assassin lunged at Nine Sister, and Cheol-san had to risk his life to block the blow for her. The group was thrown into panic, especially the assassin, who was swiftly kicked to the ground by Gioka. They needed to leave immediately, but it was too late. The assassins were closing in. Gioka took on all the attackers to give the group time to get Cheol-san to the village for treatment. The assassins rushed at him one by one, but each was knocked out cold with a single punch. When he questioned them, they couldn't answer because they were already unconscious. The rat-faced leader realized that Gioka was no ordinary opponent. The whole group froze in place. Old Man Shim noticed that the trading company's people ahead seemed to have been captured. To get Cheol-san treated, they would have to pass through that area. The cultists were demanding the leader of the trading company hand over something. Standing behind them was an even more terrifying figure, Baitu Demon Lord Ung Jaekwi. He was incredibly powerful, and his techniques were bizarre. He simply threw his staff into the ground, creating a black hole that swallowed up all the martial artists. On Gioka's side, he had to use the first form of the 9 Heavens 9 Swords, Flying Dragon Ascends to Heaven, to defeat the assassins. Though he managed to defeat them all, he was slightly injured and quickly pursued the group. As the wound of 8th brother grew increasingly dangerous, and with no other path to take, they were forced to approach the trading company. All the warriors of the trading company had already been annihilated. The cultists were pressuring the leader to hand over the 8 spirit pearls. The leader's face turned lecherous as he looked at the leader's daughter, contemplating how far they could push him. He threatened to order his men to have their way with the girl. They immediately began their actions, and her screams for help echoed out. At this point, the leader had no choice but to surrender the 8 spirit pearls. However, if they acquired this pearl, they would become even stronger, potentially repeating the nightmare from 20 years ago. But there was no other choice. After obtaining it, they still didn't let the group go, ordering their men to enjoy themselves but to make sure to clean up thoroughly and kill everyone afterward. Their screams for help grew increasingly desperate. The chief could no longer bear it and shouted in rage, cursing them. Bun Che Ron of the Flying Dragon sect will destroy you all. The assassins rushed at him, but they were too weak and were quickly cut down by the chief. At this point, everyone had to reveal themselves. They had sworn to live and die together. Both sides clashed in a fierce battle. Even Old Man Shim had to show a bit of his rusty martial arts skills. The elder brother then rushed over to the trading company leader, asking if anyone in the group knew any medical skills. He wanted to save eighth brother. The situation grew increasingly tense as everyone grew exhausted, yet the assassins kept coming. The elder brother managed to take down one of them with a punch. His inner strength, after being guided by Gioka, had grown immensely, surprising everyone with his newfound power. Perhaps it was a natural talent, just discovered a bit late. The elder brother then turned to the group and apologized. Because he had a wife and children, he couldn't stand by and watch what was happening earlier. No one blamed him. Instead, their morale was bolstered, ready to fight to the death rather than live in shame. They just needed to hold out for a bit longer. Gioka would soon arrive. The scar-faced leader had to step in personally, exuding a dangerous aura. They had received intelligence that the entire elite fighting squad had been defeated. This squad had been trained to annihilate the 7 schools of righteousness. If they were defeated, then their chances of victory were slim. After being humiliated by the Baitu demon lord, the leader took his anger out on his men, killing them all with a single basic move. Now the real fight was about to begin. The chief charged at him, joined by Nine Sister, but her saber was shattered by the enemy's blade, and she was struck by a powerful punch. His circular blade was extremely deadly, capable of inflicting damage at both close and long range. The group charged him all at once, but it was no use, they were quickly overwhelmed. At this point, Old Man Shim could no longer stand by and rushed into the fight. He was the strongest among them but had been holding back out of caution. The two engaged in a fierce battle, but Shim was quickly sent flying. The group fell into despair, powerless to resist. But then Old Man Shim laughed out loud, confusing the enemy. He suddenly sensed a terrifying presence approaching him. Gioka had returned. Before he died, the enemy leader taunted him, saying, "You think that brat will do something impressive, huh?" The group, however, felt as if they had been resurrected from the dead, showing no signs of worry. Even the Baitu demon lord found their confidence strange. Where did they get this assurance? They all believed in Gioka, their 7th brother. At that moment, he rushed in, confronting the enemy and demanding to know if he was the one who injured his brothers. The leader's face twisted with rage as he slashed at Gioka, but his weapon was shattered by a single strike. Gioka then delivered a bone-crushing punch to his face. The leader, realizing he couldn't afford to lose face in front of the demon lord, went berserk and attacked Gioka with all his might. But Gioka, with his 2 hands, prepared to unleash his sword technique, charging directly at the enemy. With a resounding clash, the enemy's weapon was sent flying. At this moment, just as he was about to be sent to the afterlife, the white-headed demon lord intercepted the strike, but even his strength was pushed back. The guy was utterly shocked, realizing that he had been repelled by an unknown young man. The old man now had to get serious, launching the Dark Shadow soul-seizing technique. 2 large iron pillars were thrown towards him. Old Shim immediately shouted for him to get away from there, but it was too late. The black energy enveloped his entire body. No one could survive this move of the white-headed demon lord. He was trapped inside, feeling as if his body was sinking into a swamp, unable to muster any strength. This was the ultimate technique he used. No one in the martial world had ever been able to defeat the Dark Shadow soul-seizing technique, a method that captured the shadow of the opponent to seize their soul. Since the day he became the white-headed demon lord, he had been nearly invincible. All around was nothing but a void, like hell itself. For the first time, Gioka felt death approaching so closely. In this hopeless situation, it seemed there was no way out. He remembered Chun-Ji, the old man, had once warned him to be cautious of curses. As long as one could destroy the source of the initial deployment, one could escape. He remembered that there were 4 strange objects around him, which must be the source of this curse. Only by destroying them could he break free. He unleashed the 7th form of the 9 Heavens technique, Dragon Claw. Outside, everyone also felt a tremendous shock. With a loud bang, his curse was shattered. The white-headed demon lord was now utterly stunned. How could someone who had fallen into the Dark Shadow soul-seizing technique break free using only his strength? The scar-faced subordinate couldn't comprehend the situation, while the demon lord was preparing to unleash his ultimate move. But looking at the old man, it didn't seem like he was prepared for this. This was truly the end. The white-headed demon lord was now entirely frightened, ordering his minions to attack Gioka. But could they stand a chance? Even the elite combat team was wiped out, so what chance did these scouts have? They simultaneously attacked him, but it was like salt thrown at stainless steel. He cut down each one as they came at him. The white-headed demon lord was now terrified, admitting that even if he used all his power, he wasn't a match for Gioka. Although the martial world was vast, it wasn't easy to find such a young master like this. He could become a significant obstacle for the cult. He knew he had to kill him, but the most important mission was to take the 8 spirits bead. If the existence of the cult was revealed now, it would be perilous. Before fleeing, he struck at the merchant guild leader to silence him. This only fueled Gioka's anger as he unleashed the 8th form of the 9 Heaven Sword technique. The 9 Dragons technique descended with the might of a great dragon. The ultimate technique of the 9 Heaven Sword, a move thought to be lost, once again resurfaced, even more powerful than it was 20 years ago in Shangtian. The Black Squad was obliterated, leaving only the scarred captain to flee with numerous injuries. The white-headed demon lord also ran faster than a squirrel, narrowly escaping with his life. The injuries of the brothers were not light, they had to be treated for the 10 heroes of 5 Peaks first. Gioka blamed himself for not arriving sooner. The brothers of the 5 Peaks mountain fortress were the most important people to him. Gioka decided he must become stronger to protect everyone. The merchant guild leader was now in a critical condition. Before passing, he wanted to say a few words to his benefactor. Thanks to you, our merchant guild and my daughter could avoid disaster. This kindness is something I can never repay. However, the Sewell Merchant Guild will repay your favor. He also had one last request, asking them to take his family to a safe place, and then he breathed his last. The group accepted his final wish. After a few days of treatment, the group set off again. If they continued straight, they would reach the territory of the Red Sand Fortress on Mount Bagong. Now they had no choice but to reveal their identity as the 5 Peaks Mountain Fortress to pass through the mountain. Since they were both bandits, they shouldn't be robbed, right? At the same time, the white-headed demon lord also arrived at the cult's altar. He had brought the 8 spirits bead along with 6 other demon lords. The one in charge here was the lunar fairy, who had caused great chaos 20 years ago. The decision to create the 7 white-headed demon lords was made by the great cult leader. We still don't know his current actions. There's no need to rush the soul-releasing ceremony for the heavenly head demon lord. If the 7 white-headed demon lords have already gathered here, then we can seize this opportunity to conquer the world as the cult leader foretold. The white-headed demon lord also mentioned that the Black Squad had suffered half of its members wounded or killed in this mission. Even the Black Squad's commander, the 10-headed demon lord, couldn't withstand a single blow from him. Though I am a sorcerer, I'm not confident I can defeat that man. This surprised everyone. That martial art he used, I've never seen anything like it before. He spun in the air 9 times and struck down like heavenly thunder. The lunar fairy immediately recognized that technique. It was the same one that defeated her 20 years ago. Meanwhile, at Mount Bagong, the Red Sand Fortress leader, Blood Saint Hyok Ryanhu, was blocking everyone's path, demanding money. If you want to live, each person must hand over 200 taels. The big brother thought to himself that these guys were too greedy. Usually, they only took 20 taels. Even bandits should have some humanity. They even discussed quietly among themselves that giving these guys the money would be a real waste, even laughing, which made the bandits think these people were idiots. Before they could finish speaking, the brother used gold coins to knock them out. Each coin was enough to beat them down. Because of this, they couldn't participate in the 6 Paths gathering anymore. At the same time, the lunar fairy realized Gioka's true identity. 20 years ago, under orders from the cult leader, she had gone to the Jiangnan region to establish the cult's base. At that time, he and the young master of the Namgung family came to cause trouble and used that technique. From that day on, he was known as the Moon Slayer Swordsman. But now, she was much stronger than before. The humiliation of that year must be avenged. When that day comes, the Namgung family and the Crouching Dragon estate will no longer appear in the history of the martial world. Meanwhile, in a village near Wanshiping, something terrifying had happened. The villagers who lived peacefully there saw an increasing number of bandits as the 6 Paths gathering approached. The group with Gioka had also arrived. Other bandits who saw them thought they were just there to make up the numbers, not taking them seriously. That night, Ha Sobek sought him out for a heartfelt talk, as Nine Sister was frequently caring for Cheol-san, so she couldn't disturb them. He also shared stories from his childhood with her. Ha Sobek cried like a child. She didn't expect that someone as monstrous as him could have such a painful past. The camp leader of the Crimson Sand Camp had also come to report that the 5 Peaks Mountain Camp had attacked them to protect the merchant group. However, the heavenly demonic general seemed uninterested and retorted, "Are you trying to show off your incompetence?" The Crimson Sand Camp was defeated by the 5 Peaks Mountain Camp shortly after it appeared. Is that what you mean to say? The Shadow Wind Cat general among the 12 demon generals was also present. Hearing about the 5 Peaks Mountain Camp, he became even more enraged, his face already marked with veins from the previous humiliation. He added more exaggeration to the tale but was scolded by the heavenly demonic general for being defeated by a kid who wasn't even 20. The heavenly demonic general decided that at this pure forest assembly, he would confront Gioka to restore his honor. If he lost again, he would have to give up his position and train for another decade, meaning a severe punishment from his master for 10 years. This was indeed a form of hell that he didn't want but had to accept. If he had to face that kid, it would be disastrous. He would need to find another way. This old man, thick-skinned as he was, came to the Five Peaks mountain camp where they welcomed him as if he were family and invited him to join their feast. But the way they addressed him as a brother made him quite uncomfortable. If Gioka weren't there, he would have slapped each one of them personally. After being called brother by the 9th and 10th sisters, he became soft-hearted again. He came to announce that the Pure Forest Assembly would start the next day and last for 4 days. He then asked who would be the representative of the Five Peaks mountain camp. They all turned to Gioka. Of course, he would be the one to lead the team. The old man thought to himself that these people were too naive. If they couldn't defeat Gioka, he would ensure that he wouldn't even participate in the Pure Forest Assembly. The next morning, the assembly began. The heavenly demonic general proclaimed that from now on, they would not just be bandits but would surpass the 7 sects and become the top faction in the world. No one from the orthodox sects would dare to look down on them. Pure forests would dominate for 1,000 years. The matches would begin, and the most outstanding individuals would be chosen as protectors or chief managers of the Pure Forest sect. Imyong-rura, the leader of Long Demon Mountain, was the first to step up. His opponent was Mak Jayab, the leader of the Bagua Peak. They even brought out a bounty poster of him, which made everyone laugh, as it was quite amusing. The bald old man was quickly defeated but still dared to boast. Thus, the dull matches continued. On the stage, the Shadow Wind Cat General was not worried at all and was busy drinking, as he had arranged a plan the night before. He said if Gioka performed too well in the assembly, he would have to take on a position in the Pure Forest sect, meaning he could no longer return to the Five Peaks mountain camp. Everyone agreed to just enjoy watching the fights without showing off. Seeing the lively crowd on stage, Gioka also felt restless and decided to take his large blade for a stroll. Old Shim also realized this. A monster who had once defeated the heavenly chosen immortal, a top master of the Wudong sect, was now standing here watching those street fighters. He couldn't stand it. After he left, the experts began to show themselves. The leader of the Great Byong Mountain camp faced the bald head, who was a direct disciple of the heavenly demonic general. The bald head now felt the pressure from above. He had to fight seriously, emitting a terrifying aura. He then used the 10,000 serpents blood technique, causing numerous snakes to attack with a loud bang. After all, he was a disciple of the heavenly demonic general. At the same time, Gioka was strolling around, feeling restless, and cutting down a tree. However, a voice suddenly made him stop. He had almost eliminated the person hiding behind him without even noticing their presence. He wondered if they were bandits. The person merely said they were hiding here to avoid boredom and then followed Gioka, saying that instead of meeting a bunch of old bandits, young people like them should make friends. He then used leaves to attack Gioka. It turned out to be an expert who was also restless, so they decided to fight. The person used the black water lotus flower, attacking with leaves as daggers. Gioka directly struck and shattered the technique with a single swing. At that moment, in the arena, the bald head was celebrating his victory, but he didn't realize that the leader of the camp had not been defeated yet. The aura of a large spider appeared, and he managed to survive the technique. Then he used the poison insect 9 techniques, charging straight at the bald head. With a loud impact, the bald head, being one of the 12 demon generals, was completely defeated, causing everyone to panic. The 12 demon generals were defeated by the leader of an unknown bandit camp. Moreover, his chi technique was something they had never seen before. This was getting interesting. After the first day, the heavenly demonic general was treating the bald head's injuries. He wanted to verify the identity of the unknown camp leader through the damage. They were plotting something. In the hands of the heavenly demonic general was a black spider. This was the thing that had infiltrated the bald head's chi technique. It belonged to the demon cult. It seemed the Dark Wanderer cult had not given up on their delusions. They were hiding among the camp leaders to secure 5 positions as protectors for the Pure Forest sect. These people were known as the 10 demon soldiers by the demon cult, who would face the 12 demon generals. They wanted to use Pure Forest as a pretext to attack the martial world. The heavenly demonic general then recalled Ryoshi and shouted, but the little young master had disappeared. He had to immediately send people to search for him, and it was very likely that the shameless kid was at the Five Peaks mountain camp. He had followed Gioka all the way here. Moreover, when he couldn't win, he brought a bunch of liquor to compete with Gioka. He directly took a large bottle and drank it quickly. Everyone was shocked. Gioka also found this person very interesting. The older brothers had to come out for him, clearly addicted and embarrassed. This scene surprised Gioka. My brothers, please stop being addicted. He even winked at Sobek, making her feel disgusted. Everyone continued drinking until they were drunk. This liquor was indeed of the highest quality. Old Shim also quietly assessed. He didn't seem like someone from the mountain camp. Who was he that could prepare such fine liquor in this mountainous area? Anyway, they continued drinking first and would figure it out later. The experts of Pure Forest were searching for the little young master but couldn't find him. This made him furious. Fortunately, the Shadow Wind Cat General arrived with news that the little young master had been found. The young lady had ordered her subordinates to bring the Flower Valley wine to the Five Peaks mountain camp. This further enraged the heavenly demonic general. He thought they were the infiltrators of the demon cult. It was his only daughter, and the fat old man realized that these clueless people could not be the demon generals of the demon cult. The heavenly demonic general then turned to ask old Shadow Wind Cat, as he had the most contact with the Five Peaks mountain camp. This old man took the opportunity to take revenge, saying they were from the demon cult. Meanwhile, the little young master was heavily drunk and weakened due to overexposure to the elements. Gyoka could sense the terrifying aura of the heavenly demonic general. What will happen to our protagonist? Stay tuned for the next part. Peace.